Okay, we're looking at dividing rational numbers, and there's some relationships between the multiplying and dividing. So we're going to start with multiplying, which is a lesson that we already looked at, and we already looked for patterns. We found the pattern when we multiply fractions that all you have to do is multiply numerator by numerator and denominator times denominator, and use the same rules you did with whole numbers, saying a negative times a positive was a negative. So we know our answer is going to be negative, and then we just multiply negative 1 times 2 is negative 2, and 3 times 3 is 9. So our answer is negative 2/9. Now, as we work with dividing rational numbers, we're going to use some of those same ideas. So when we look at dividing, just like multiplying, we are allowed to divide straight across if the denominator comes out to be a whole number. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. That's a whole number, so we're allowed to do that. 3 divided by 2 is 3 halves. Anything over 1 or anything divided by 1 is that same thing. So 3 halves divided by 1 is the same as just having 3 halves, or 3 over 2, which is equal to 1 and 1 half. Problems arise when we take our denominators and divide them and we don't get a whole number. 5 divided by 4 is not going to give us a whole number. So we have to change our fractions so that we do get a whole number. Now, one way of doing that is to get a common denominator. To do that, we multiply it by a value of 1. In this case, I'm going to look at this denominator over here and see that it's a 4. So multiply 5 by 4 and 2 by 4. When I said we multiply by a value of 1, this is what I was talking about, because 4/4 is equal to 1. And we are allowed to multiply anything by 1 without changing its value. So we have not changed the value of negative 2/5. We're just rewriting it in a different form that's equivalent. So that becomes negative 8/20. Do the same thing here. Get the common denominator of 20. We have to multiply 4 by 5 and 3 by 5 because we're actually multiplying it by 5/5, which is equal to 1. We're allowed to multiply by 1 without changing its value. So then that becomes 15/20. Once we get a common denominator, remember we did that so that we could control whether the denominator, when dividing the denominators, we got a whole number. Well, now we have 20 divided by 20, which will give us 1. Negative 8 divided by 15 will give us negative 8/15. Remember that the division symbol and the fraction symbol are the same. And then negative 8/15 over 1, or divided by 1, gives us negative 8/15, because anything divided by 1 is that thing. So our answer is negative 8/15. Then we come down here, and again, if we tried to divide straight across, 3 divided by 5 is not going to give us a whole number. Therefore, again, we need to get a common denominator. Multiply 3 by 5, which I got from this denominator. If I multiply the denominator by 5, I have to multiply the numerator by 5, because I'm actually multiplying it by 5/5, which is equal to 1 whole. I'm allowed to multiply anything by 1 without changing its value. And I'm going to do the same thing here, but instead it's by 3 to get our common denominator of 15. I'm actually multiplying it by 3 over 3, which is equal to 1. I'm going to rewrite my problem with my equivalent fractions now. I have negative 5/15 divided by negative 9/15. And when I divide straight across, I get 15 divided by 15, which is 1, and negative 5 divided by negative 9 is negative 5/9 over 1, or divided by 1, which is negative 5/9, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this just becomes 5/9. So again, remember, when you are dividing rational numbers, always try to divide straight across first. If you get a whole number, you're fine to do that. If you don't, you want to get a common denominator so that when you divide straight across you get a 1, because anything divided by 1 will mean your answer is just that value. Also, if you need to simplify, make sure that you do that.